you go.
Learned how to buy low and sell high, growing up right outside of Chicago on a 59-acre farm. I remember what we were going through, and I was like, man, she just made $35,000 practically out of thin air. You can quit and you can be full-time real estate investor, but just know the ups and downs that's going to come with that. Just be persistent. Make sure you get to know the operator, because once again, it goes right back to the relationships.
We have a very special guest on the show today. Marcus Maloney went from a GED to an MBA, moved from Illinois to Phoenix, lost his job, and through the adversity became a multifaceted real estate professional. You've got to hear this. You will be inspired. It's going to enlighten your day. You need to hear Marcus's story. Here we go. All right, everyone. Welcome to the Life by Design podcast through real estate investing. Today we have Marcus Maloney here. Marcus grew up in Chicago, now resides in Arizona. But before I tell you more about Marcus, I want Marcus to share more about himself, how he got into the real estate game that he's in right now. Marcus, tell us more.
Hey, thank you so much, Dr. Alex, for having me here on the show. I really want to make sure I provide some great content for your listeners. So kind of starting out, man, I learned how to buy low and sell high, growing up right outside of Chicago on a 59-acre farm. And most kids during the summer, they just play, and then at the beginning of the school year, mom and dad take them school shopping, right? And they don't have to worry about anything.
Right.
Well, for us, my grandfather taught us how to invest at an early age. So we would flip piglets. We would go and we would buy small piglets at the auction in the late spring. So around late March, early April, we would buy the piglets for $10, $15. They would be, anywhere from 5 to 10 pounds. And then we would need to feed them, take care of them, all the way up to, mid-August before school starts. And we would then take those pigs back to the auction and sell them, right? So the quintessential buy low, sell high. Yes, we had some costs in between there, for feeding, but a lot of the food that they ate were just scraps from our table. So it really wasn't much overhead. So we would buy a piglet for, like I said, $10 to $15, and then turn around and sell those pigs for, $280 to $300. So that was my first foray into understanding, wow, you know what, you can start with a little, and if you just work it just a little bit, you can make a lot. And that was my first foray into understanding capitalism.
Absolutely. That's great. That's probably, you were making a lot more than some of the other kids were making.
Absolutely, yeah. And it took some work, but it wasn't a lot of work. It wasn't like you need to go and walk the pig. It wasn't like you need to wash the pig or anything like that. It was get up in the morning, feed them in the evening, and that's it. So I learned it was quasi-passive, but I learned again to buy low and sell high. And then from there, Dr. Alex, my mom, she was a nurse, right? So she was in the medical field, and she was working with a state institution. She was the lead nurse at a state institution, and she thought about real estate because, like most of, high net worth earners, they're like, oh, you know what? I'm paying too much in taxes. I need to do something to, restructure, move money around. So she bought two houses. She bought one that was a fire damage house, and one that was just, terrible condition. It was an old rental, and she went in and she along with us, because me and my brother, we looked at each other like, why did she buy this? Was this just something for her to get us to do work, right? So, and this was in the late 80s, 88, 89. So this is before fixing and flipping was a thing, and she turned around and sold the fire damage house and got a check for like $35,000.
Wow.
So we looked at that and we were like, in 1988, 89, that was during Reagan economics. We were going through a slight recession. Now, I was young. I was only like 13 or 14, but now I remember what we were going through. And I was like, man, she just made $35,000 practically out of thin air. So from that's how I learned the concept, of real estate investing. So you tie that story with the buy low, sell high story, and that's kind of where I am today, Dr. Alex.
Wow, Marcus, you start learning this on your own? What you go to school for? Did you go to school for this? Tell me more.
You know what? I dropped out of high school. So I went from a GED to an MBA. And not many people can say that, So 2 months before high school, I dropped out and then got my stuff together, kind of focused, because I was one of those kids that always questioned the teachers, why we have to learn this. I was really a disruptor at an early age before that was, the slang term or the key term. And I dropped out and then went back to school, got my MBA, and God works in mysterious ways, because now I understood why the educational component was important, because it tied back to the real estate investing and to the buy low, sell high. So it wasn't a traditional education where I went to go and learn how to do real estate. Real estate was just a byproduct of what I've learned over the years through family experiences.
That's wonderful. And when you first started off, Marcus, did you start off with single families? What kind of assets did you start off? And when was that? Like, when did you actually actively started your real estate profession?
So it was actually single family. So that one of the houses that my mom, she invested in, she kept. She no longer wanted to maintain the property, and it was actually sitting kind of dormant. And sometimes you have to do an assessment. Hey, what do you have around you that's not being utilized that can really generate income? And we had that property, and we would have a family member in there every now and then. But then I looked at it, I said, this is an asset that I can really use. And so we restructured that property. I went in there, had it completely renovated, done everything, and then I started putting tenants in it. So I got actively investing, I would say probably about 15 years ago with that property, turning that property over. And then from there, I saw the power, saved a lot of that, proceeds from that transaction, and then started buying more single families, and then started buying some duplexes and fourplexes.
And what market are you focused in right now?
So we are, most of our passive income properties are just outside of the Chicago market. So we do deal with a little bit of, legislation around, it's more of a tenant-friendly state. But if you have the right key components in place, your attorney, and you network with, the right people that's in place, you really don't have any issues. Because I know a lot of people talk about, it's better to invest in this state versus that state. But I always tell people, guess what? In every state, there's real estate investors. You just have to understand the nuances in each market. So that's one of the things that I did. I really learned the nuances in that market. But then I'm actively investing here in the Phoenix market also, doing some more transactional, not too much passive investing, but more transactional, like fix and flips and wholesale transactions.
Now, Marcus, how did you end up in Arizona?
You know what? I started taking real estate seriously, right, Dr. Alex? And at the time, it was right after the market crash, and I would look and I would see, everybody was talking about Phoenix real estate. You can go out there, you can buy properties for pennies on a dollar. Don't nobody want to buy properties in Arizona. So my wife, we would actually come out here during the winter and spend some time with her cousins. And we loved the place. And we moved from there to Arizona. And I was actually promised a job moving from Illinois to Arizona, and that job was rescinded. So I immediately had to figure it out really, really quickly. So I just started doing research, Dr. Alex, and understood, a lot of people were saying, hey, you know what? All of the investors are down at the courthouse steps. So that's where I went. I went down there to start networking, start building my network, and started meeting, hard money lenders, a lot of private capital guys, and just really started building my network from there.
Now, so you started doing that, and were you doing wholesale some flipping in Arizona. Is that what's happening mainly?
Yes. So, because I really had not too much. Yes, I had the small portfolio back in Illinois at the time, but it wasn't enough to really sustain the family. So
Right.
I got out here and I had to do things that was more transactional to make, income for the family. So that's when I got into the real estate wholesaling and the fixing and flipping, because I needed now money.
Right.
Yes, we always want the later money, but at the time I needed the now money.
Hey, we
And
all
I
can
learned
use
those
some
skills.
now money.
Yeah, right.
You can't hate on now money. Don't give it up.
right.
Yeah.
So I needed the now money, and that's how I started doing a lot of transactional things. And what I was doing was, it's like, okay, I'm making a lot of money with the transactions, but I was paying a lot in taxes.
Right.
So what do I need to do to offset some of these tax liabilities? And I took that money, the now money here in Arizona, started investing again, buying more properties back in Illinois. So that was offsetting some of those tax
that's real
implications.
smart. A lot of people that I hear who get into real estate, they tend to give up that now money that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're like, oh yeah, I hate what I'm doing now, or I want to quit my job so bad, and it's good when everything's great, but as we can see,
Yes.
the last 6 months, real estate in the future money or the investing side has not been as hot as it was the last few years, and there's some people who quit their jobs. Right? Who gave up the now money. It's hurting a little bit right now because the deal flow isn't as high as it was. And I get questioned a lot. Hey, Alex, do you plan on giving up the practice? You plan on stop doing what you're doing? I said, why would I stop doing what I'm doing that got me to where I'm at right now? If anything,
Right.
I might need to lean in a little bit more.
Yeah. Yep. Double down, right?
Double down so that it allows me to do even more real estate. So that's great. That's great. Now, when you moved from Illinois to Arizona, did you already have kids at the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was married, had 3 kids.
Wow.
The kids were 3, 4, and 8, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Or 3, 4, and 9. So
I can't imagine
I
the stress.
I had to hit the ground running. I had to hit the ground running, Dr. Alex.
Yeah.
And that's why it was important for me to say, okay, where is all of the real estate transactions happening? That's where I need to be. So I would drop my wife off at work, and also psychologically, right, Dr. Alex? My wife is going to work. I'm a stay-at-home husband. That just wasn't working for me.
Right.
So I would drop her off at work, and then I was just out. I'm walking properties. I'm meeting real estate investors, meeting contractors, not knowing what the end goal was going to be, but I just knew I needed to be active. And by being active, that's how I started building, my relationships and building my teams. But one thing that I did want to piggyback on is you said, a lot of investors, they want to give up that now money, right? They want to say, all right, I want to quit my job and do real estate full time. A lot of times that's not wisdom, because you want to remain bankable. And what I mean by bankable is it's easy for you to acquire assets when you have that W-2 income. Because most traditional lenders, that's what they're going to look at. Okay, W-2 income, they have a solid foundation. Yes, we can lend. But to entrepreneurs, there's many more steps. They want to look at 1099s. They want to look at profit and loss statements from your business. And then the loans that you have to get like DSCR loans, or, loans where you have to put a hefty down payment, 20, sometimes 25% down. But if you're bankable and you have that W-2, you can go in for, much less down than you would, just by going off of 1099s or the entrepreneurial route. So if
I
you
agree.
can and you love what you do, remain bankable, keep that W-2.
Or even if you hate what you do, become bankable in something else before you give this up.
True.
Right?
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
You think about when you came to Phoenix and you had a job lined up. If you think back, like, man, if you were still in that job and you didn't have time for the real estate, How do you think it would have changed the trajectory of your life, Marcus?
For one, in Phoenix now, it's 11 o'clock. I wouldn't be able to have this conversation with you, Dr. Alex, because I would be at work. Honestly, I would probably lean into that because that's the type of individual that I am. Once I'm in something, I go full bore at it. So if I would have retained that position, I would have been full bore into that, and I wouldn't have been thinking about real estate. And so I thank God that, those life happened the way it happened, and I was able to lean into real estate. And now I love what I do. I love being on podcasts like this, Life by Design, and able to talk to other listeners and let them know that, yes, you can keep your job and you can still do real estate passively. Or, if you don't like your job, you can quit and you can be full-time real estate investor, but just know the ups and downs that's going to come with that.
Right. So let's talk about that. You mentioned the ups and downs. What are some of the ups? But more importantly, I think what people don't see is what are some of the downs?
Well, just like now, Dr. Alex, a lot of us, 2020, the back end of 2020, 2021, 2022, life was good for real estate investors. You can go out there, you can find anything, buy it, turn around and sell it 2 months later and make a sizable return. Well, now with the way the market is, it's hard to find those assets, and then it's even harder, to make those assets profitable. So by not having that W-2, you have those downs where that income is a little inconsistent, and you have to be aware of that. And that's one of the reasons why I definitely pray first thing in the morning, Alex, is because it's important for me to be grounded, because you never know what your day will entail. Because, just think, if I get a call right now and I'll give you an example. Got a call earlier this week on one of our commercial buildings. The AC unit went out. And it's not a huge commercial building, but still, it was $12,000 unexpectedly.
Right.
Yes, we had reserves, but that's still $12,000 unexpectedly. So yes, there are ups and downs. You have property managers that don't manage your properties the way they started. They start out good, start on the high end, and they start tailing off. Those are some of the things that you have to be aware of. And yes, real estate is sexy now. Everybody loves real estate, but there are a lot of back end things that you have to be aware of and be mindful of. But as long as you have those contingencies in place, you'll definitely be successful.
What is some of the craziest story that you've seen in real estate that was the most challenging, and how did you overcome that challenge, Marcus?
Wow, you know what, Dr. Alex, there are a few. You know what, I had, I'm trying to think of one in particular. Okay, we acquired, and this wasn't too crazy, but we acquired a duplex. And completely out of the blue, we couldn't get into the property. It was a foreclosure, bank owned, and had a squatter in it. And Illinois, again, is a tenants' rights state. So the squatter wouldn't let us in the property. We didn't have access to the property or anything like that. But the numbers looked really, really good on paper. But again, we couldn't see the interior of the property. So lo and behold, we still went on ahead and took that property down, purchased it, and we were in the upstairs unit because that unit was vacant, and the downstairs tenant that was the squatter, had problems with us, was like, hey, I'm going to call the police. You guys are not supposed to be up there and everything like that. But lo and behold, to make a long story short, we were able to get that squatter out with the help of our attorney, and then was able to reposition that property. And now it's a great asset for us. So it was a little hairy and a little hectic in between there, but it worked out in the end because of my network.
There you go. Once again, it goes back to the relationship and network.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing that I realize in real estate is your network is so important. The relationships that you build is so important.
It is. Real estate is a team sport, and you're only as good as your team. Because you can have a terrible asset, but if you have a great team, that great team will make that asset profitable. So I always tell people, lean into your relationships, lean into your team, build that strong team, have a strong real estate attorney, have a strong contractor, make sure you have a strong property management company or individual that you're working with, because they're going to actually let you know if that property is going to be profitable or if it's going to be a loss just by some of the things that they do.
Right. No, I agree. When you say you mentioned you have 3 kids, are your kids involved in any of the real estate? Do they want to be involved at all?
Yes, actually, Alex, my son and my 2 daughters, so my kids, they own a single family house, and they just paid it off last year. So on my YouTube channel, I took my son with me. We were going through the steps of what he needed to do to get the mortgage balance paid off, because they was collecting the rent, saved the rent, and then was able to pay that asset off. It wasn't a whole lot left on the mortgage. It was only about $40,000 left on that mortgage, but I wanted to take them through the process. So now they have $950 passive income coming in monthly from that one property. So I'm trying to teach them slowly, the finances behind, acquiring and controlling assets to help build your net worth.
That's wonderful. Do they ever say, "Hey, Dad, that's what I want to do," or are they wanting to do something else right now?
You know what? My oldest, she's kind of leaning into real estate. She's leaning into the sexy side of it. She's like, I want to own some vacation rentals. So now we're looking at acquiring a property here in Phoenix. That way she can manage a vacation rental, so she can understand the nuances behind it and see if it's something that she really wants to do. So I'm trying to plant these seeds slowly, and hopefully they stick and they grow and they be in good soil, and then they say, you know what, this is exactly what I want to do.
There you go. Now, what does the next, say, 3 to 5 years, Marcus, look for you?
Man, we are really leaning into, Dr. Alex, more larger multifamily properties. We're kind of working with a team now to get everything structured so we can start going after 50 plus units across the country. So we're just in the infancy stages of that, because what we're looking at is a lot of these multifamily owners that bought properties 2020, 2019, a lot of those mortgages are about to reset. So it's time for refinance time, and they're going from a 3% mortgage, 4% mortgage, up to possibly an 8% mortgage. Do they have the capital, to offset, those discrepancies? So there's going to be quite a few multifamily investors that's going to raise their hand and say, you know what, we need to sell this thing because we can't do another capital raise with our investors because they're already into the property. So that's kind of what we're looking at, and we've already seen some assets come to the forefront where seller finance on 19 units, at 5.5%, things like that. And then I'm not sure if you're aware, but there was just a multifamily investor, that property that got foreclosed on, $300 million asset. So
of course, that's the Houston deal.
Yeah. So is that the start and it's going to trigger? We don't know, but it just lets me know that, there are people in that position.
Absolutely. I believe that this year and next year is opportunity zones, opportunistic times where, as the balloon payments come up, and if they can't make those payments, they will be forced to sell, and you will have a lot of motivated sellers. And this is where people should be very, very patient. This is the time to build your relationships with partners, build relationships with investors, update them constantly. And I think that what happened in the last 6 months is something that was necessary, because cap rates were getting compressed. right? And prices are skyrocketing. You can't have 20% increase in rents forever.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And some operators were kind of banking on that and running their models off of that. And now that has ceased, we'll see where the chips fall.
Right, right. Marcus, I want to thank you for being on the show. Now, before we leave, I do have one more question for you. All right?
Sure.
In the event, if you woke up today, you have all the knowledge in your mind, but you only had $1,000, what would you do?
Oh, that's a great question, Dr. Alex. What I would do is, and I had $1,000. For one, I would buy a subscription or be a member of a local RIA, Real Estate Investors Association, so I can start with my network, because I only have $1,000. I need to be where the money is, where the deals are, where the relationships are. That way I can infiltrate there and say, all right, I only have $1,000. I can work with an operator. I could probably help with property management. I can help with, running CMAs and doing some of the financials, things like that, so I can get ingrained into the real estate industry, and then from there, build from there. So my main thing is, with that $1,000, start building your relationships, because those relationships will take you exactly where you need to go. So $1,000, once again, I would join a local RIA or some smaller mastermind and sit up under the table of those who are truly successful at what I want to be, and start working with them, asking them, how can I help you? How can I serve you? How can I help your business become better or more profitable? What seat or what can I offer to try and help them be better? And then from there, by providing that value, it's reciprocal, right? So they'll then in turn and say, here's an opportunity, for Marcus. Here, Marcus, we got this property where we're not gonna hold it in our portfolio or something like that. Can you go out and try and find a buyer for us? Something, but people will then in turn try and help you because you help them. So that's one of the things that I would do, is join the local networks.
Thank you for sharing that. Once again, everyone, Marcus brought it back to networking and relationships. Marcus, thank you so much for being on the show. We really, really enjoyed it. You provided a lot of value, and through the adversity of losing your work to doing where you are right now, that's very inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alex. Thank you for allowing me to be on the Life by Design. The last thing I just want to let everybody know is just remain persistent. If you're looking to be an LP, in a project, just be persistent. Make sure you get to know the operator, because once again, it goes right back to the relationships. If you have commonalities with that operator, then that they will have your best interests at heart and protect your capital.
And Marcus, to build relationships with you, if someone's starting out or someone who's seasoned that would like to build a relationship with you, what's the best way they can reach you?
Man, I am on all social platforms at MRCS Maloney. That's MRCS Maloney. That's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. It's Marcus Maloney. Or they could just give me a call. I have a 15-minute free consultation on my website, marcusemaloney.com. No sales pitch, nothing like that. I just genuinely like to give back and help people.
Thank you so much, Marcus. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Dr. Alex. Appreciate it.
If you like more like Marcus's story, you can watch other podcasts here and here. We'll see you next time.